People get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on.
Congress hired acoustic experts to find out. They set up an elaborate test. With microphones placed strategically in Dealey Plaza, they recorded the sounds of rifle shots from the 6th floor of the school book depository and from the grassy knoll. Comparing those shots with the sounds on the dictabelt, they confirmed that the dictabelt actually had recorded the sounds of 4 gunshots, not 3. Then, with a close study of the physical layout of Dealey Plaza, they calculated the unique echo pattern that would be found if a shot had been fired from the grassy knoll. The result was this acoustic fingerprint. This pattern of 26 distinct echoes matched point for point the echoes on the police recording. It led to a dramatic conclusion.
With a probability of 95% or better, there was indeed a shot fired from the grassy knoll.
Challenges to this acoustic finding came from some unusual sources. The most important came from Steve Barber, a rock drummer living in a small town in Ohio.
I didn't have access to the tape recordings themselves at the point where I was, trying to study them. And July of 1979, Gallery magazine put out this special issue on the assassination of President Kennedy. And in it included a paper record of the recorded gunshot evidence. And if you overlook the narration, you can, pretty much hear what they're talking about. Well, anyway, I just played this thing to death, just trying to hear, the gunshots and hear for myself what they really said was 95% evidence of a conspiracy.
Steve Barber alone heard something all the experts missed, the barely audible sound of Sheriff Decker at headquarters telling policemen on the scene, hold everything secure. The stuck open microphone, which was on Channel 1, had somehow picked up Sheriff Decker's words from Channel 2, a phenomenon known as crosstalk. And back at police headquarters, the dictabelt recorded what the microphone had picked up.
I found that when Sheriff Decker is speaking, his voice is coming through the open microphone during the sound impulses that the acoustic experts said were gunshots. But he didn't make his statement until a minute and a half after the assassination had already occurred, so those cannot be gunshots simply because of that.
In 1982, the National Academy of Sciences confirmed the crosstalk Steve Barber discovered, and thus concluded the acoustic evidence of a 4th shot coming from the grassy knoll was invalid.
You still hear it? Yeah.
This left Congress with no scientific evidence of conspiracy. However, some congressional experts believe the crosstalk might be due to a recording mix-up on the dictabelt. And they point out that the Academy did not account for the acoustic fingerprint of the grassy knoll shot. Chief Counsel Blakey.
You can reconstruct an acoustical fingerprint for each of the 4 shots. We did it for the shot from the grassy knoll. If it was to be done for the other 3 shots, it would either corroborate what we did or tend to undermine it. I would like to see what a acoustical fingerprint analysis of the other 3 shots indicates.
So, if there was a grassy knoll gunman, as eye and ear witnesses testified, the best scientific analysis available today of the photographic and acoustic evidence does not yet prove it. The one remaining category of doubt relates to what should be the best evidence, the body of the slain president. Controversial evidence about the body of the president has been the focus of a new critical approach developed by David Lifton. His investigation led to a thoroughly researched book published after Congress re-examined the assassination.
what part of his brain.
Lifton found new evidence about the autopsy and new evidence from eyewitnesses whom he filmed. This led him to a provocative conclusion.
What is very clear is that the president's body did not make an uninterrupted journey from Dallas to Bethesda. It began in a large ceremonial casket. It was placed in that casket by Aubrey Reich of the O'Neill Funeral Home.
I helped put President Kennedy's body in a bronze ceremonial casket on November 22nd, 1963, at Parker Memorial Hospital.
He wrapped the body in sheets. It was placed in the casket.
The bronze casket was placed on board Air Force One. This was not the casket from which Kennedy's body was removed by Bethesda autopsy technician Paul O'Connor.
We opened the pinkish gray shipping casket. There was a gray body bag, zipped shut. We unzipped the body bag, and the president's body was lifted out of the body bag.
Reich told Lifton that Kennedy's body was not in a body bag when it left Dallas. How could he be so certain?
I remember picking him up. I was the one that had the blood on my shirt and everything from the body. If he'd been in a crash bag, he couldn't have got any blood on him because it's a sealed bag.
Was the large bronze casket empty when it was unloaded at Bethesda, as Lifton argues? The Secret Service refused to comment for Nova. But an Air Force officer claims the body could not have been switched because the casket was in his view for all but 5 minutes of the journey from Dallas to Bethesda. But after the body arrived at Bethesda Naval Hospital for the autopsy, many problems followed. The autopsy should have determined how the gunshots killed Kennedy and where the bullets entered and exited his body. Dr. James Humes, a Naval Hospital pathologist, not a forensic expert, was in charge. This was his first autopsy involving gunshot wounds. It resulted in many irregularities. He did not examine Kennedy's clothing to locate and confirm entry and exit wounds. He did not dissect the neck wound to trace the bullet's path through the body. He did not locate the wounds with reference to fixed body landmarks, and he apparently made errors of several inches in drawings locating the wounds. He did not properly examine the brain, which disappeared some years later and has not been found since. He didn't realize there was a bullet wound in the front of the neck until he contacted the Dallas doctors the following day. By then, the body had been removed and re-examination was impossible. And finally, he burned his original autopsy notes before they were made public. Compounding these problems, the autopsy descriptions of the wounds were substantially different from the way the doctors in Dallas described them, as David Lifton explains.
We have two groups of doctors seeing the body, which is evidence. Their observations are 6 hours apart. What did they see in each area of the body? In the area of the neck, President Kennedy suffered a wound in Dallas, which was described as an entry wound.
If Kennedy was shot from behind, the wound on the front of his neck had to be an exit wound. But that's not what Nurse Audrey Bell, on duty in the emergency room that day, recalls.
It looked small and round, like an entry wound, instead of larger, like an exit wound could often look.